No one knew why the house at the end of Hawthorne Lane had remained unsold for over 30 years. It was beautiful in a way, tall, Victorian, with intricate woodwork and stained glass windows that caught the moonlight like trapped spirits. Yet, despite its grandeur, it was abandoned. The realtors would lower the price every year, but buyers would never stay for long. Some left within months, others in weeks. A few lasted only a single night. No one talked about what happened inside. That is, until Daniel Grayson moved in. Daniel was not the type to believe in ghost stories. A former crime journalist, he had seen too much of the world's horrors to be scared of old legends. When he saw the Hawthorne house listed for a steal, he thought it was the perfect opportunity, a quiet place, to write his first book. The town folk warned him. "There's something wrong with that house," the gas station attendant muttered when he stopped for directions. Daniel only chuckled. "I like a little mystery." The old man didn't laugh. As Daniel drove through the winding road leading up to the house, the first thing he noticed was the fog. It clung low to the ground, thick and unyielding, swirling around his tires like unseen hands trying to hold him back. The house loomed ahead, its windows black and empty, the front door slightly ajar, though he knew the realtor had locked it. A small shiver ran down his spine. It's just an old house, nothing more. He stepped inside, suitcase in hand. The air smelled of dust and something else. Something faintly metallic. Blood. Shaking his head, Daniel dismissed the thought. Imagination. That night the house was quiet, until it spoke. The whispers. It started around 2 a.m., a soft creaking sound echoed from the hallway. Daniel, half asleep, dismissed it as the house settling. Then came the whisper, low, breathless, right by his ear. "Daniel!" His eyes flew open. The room was empty. His bedside lamp flickered, casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. He listened. Silence. Slowly, his racing heartbeat steadied. A dream. Just a dream. He turned over and tried to sleep, but as he drifted off, the whisper came again. "Daniel, come downstairs." This time he sat up, skin cold with fear. The voice was soft but insistent, like a secret being shared from just behind the door. He grabbed his phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped out into the hallway. The wooden floorboards groaned beneath his feet. The darkness of the house felt heavier than before, as if the walls had shifted closer in his sleep. A sound came from below, a chair scraping against the floor. Someone was in the kitchen. He tightened his grip on his phone, pulse hammering. "Hello?" No response. He should leave, but something pulled him forward. He crept down the stairs, heart pounding. The kitchen door was open, though he had shut it before bed. The air was colder in here. The smell of metal was stronger. And then he saw it. The dining chair, pulled out from the table, facing him. Daniel swallowed. "Hello?" The silence stretched, then the whisper again, right by his ear. "Sit." Daniel ran. The first night back in his bedroom, he locked the door, pressing his back against it. His breathing was ragged, his hands shaking. There's someone in the house. That thought terrified him more than ghosts. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. No signal. His eyes darted to the window. The fog outside was denser now, swirling unnaturally, pressing against the glass like it was alive. Then, a knock on the door. Software measured. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Daniel held his breath. A whisper seeped through the wood. "Let me in." The history of the house, Daniel barely slept. The morning light brought no comfort. The air inside the house was different now. It was watching him. Determined to find answers, he drove into town. At the library, he dug into old newspapers, searching for anything about the house's past. What he found made his stomach turn. August 5th, 1956. Family of 4 found dead in Hawthorne House. Their throats had been slit. No sign of forced entry. No fingerprints. September 12th, 1971. Couple vanishes without a trace. The house was found locked from the inside. Their belongings remained, but they were gone. March 3rd, 1994. Writer checks into the house, found mutilated Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The details were grisly. The writer had been found in the same dining room Daniel had seen last night, seated at the chair. His fingers had been sliced off, scattered across the table. His eyes were missing. His mouth was stretched into a grotesque, silent scream. Beside him, written in blood on the wall, were 2 words. Thank you. The second night, Daniel wanted to leave. Every instinct screamed at him to pack his things and never look back. But as he reached his car, the engine wouldn't start. The fog had thickened again. The house stood behind him, dark and still. A whisper curled through the air. Leaving so soon? Daniel's blood turned to ice. It knows. Swallowing his fear, he turned back toward the house. He had no choice. He would have to survive one more night. That evening, he barricaded himself in his room, stacking furniture against the door. He kept the lights on, his phone charged, his ears sharp for any sound. Then, at exactly midnight, the lights went out. The whispers returned. Only this time, they weren't alone. Daniel heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving up the stairs. A cold sweat broke over his skin. He clutched the knife he had taken from the kitchen, pressing his back against the wall. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. A long, heavy silence. Then, the knob twisted. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. He held his breath. The whisper slithered through the crack of the door. Let me in, Daniel. Something pressed against the wood. Something thin, boneless, slithering against it like a wet rope. Then the scratching began. Fingernails, dragging down the wood, slow, deep, peeling. Daniel clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay silent. A single thought pounded through his skull. Don't answer, don't move, don't listen. Then, the whisper changed. It wasn't soft anymore. It was smiling. I know you're awake. The third night, Daniel didn't sleep. He didn't move. For hours, he sat frozen in the darkness, listening to the thing outside his door. The scratching had stopped. The whispers had faded. But the silence felt worse. At some point, exhaustion overtook him, and he drifted into uneasy sleep, only to wake up gasping. Something had changed. The room smelled different, like wet earth, like rot. Slowly he reached for his phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam flickered over the walls, the furniture. Then he saw the mirror, and his reflection wasn't moving. His breath caught in his throat. The him in the mirror was staring straight at him, smiling. Not just a smile, a wide, inhuman grin. His own voice whispered from the glass. You should have left, Daniel. The mirror shattered. Daniel stumbled backward, heart hammering. The shards scattered across the floor, reflecting dozens of eyes, watching. Then footsteps from inside the room. Daniel turned, but the second he moved, something grabbed him, dragged into the dark. It was fast, cold, strong. Hands, too many hands, wrapped around his arms, his throat, his ankles, pulling him into the shadows. He kicked, thrashed, gasping for air, but the grip was relentless. He barely had time to scream before the darkness swallowed him whole. And suddenly, he was somewhere else. The air was thick, damp, suffocating. The ground beneath him was wrong, not wood, but something soft, pulsing like muscle. The walls twisted and stretched, breathing. The whispers were everywhere now, but they weren't calling his name anymore. They were laughing. The dining room. A dim glow filled the space, and Daniel realized where he was. The dining room, the chair. It was waiting for him. His breath hitched as he saw something else. A body. Seated at the table, slumped forward, blood dried around its wrists. The skin was gray, shriveled, its jaw hanging loose like it had been screaming for a long time. Then its head snapped up, and Daniel saw its face. It was him. The dead version of him grinned. Took you long enough. The house feeds, the whispers grew louder, overlapping, circling. The walls pulsed faster, shuddering, hungry. Daniel tried to move, but his body refused. The thing in the chair stood up. It moved like a puppet, jerking with every step, its head tilting unnaturally. The smile never left its lips. It reached out. Daniel struggled, but something held him in place, something unseen, something cold. The whispers turned into a chant. Sit, sit, sit. Daniel's knees buckled. His body folded into the chair against his will. His wrists pressed against the arms of the chair. Then, the unseen hands began strapping him down. Leather restraints coiled around his wrists and ankles, tightening, cutting into his skin. Daniel screamed. The whispers screamed with him. The ritual, the mirror's self, loomed over him, placing a finger to its lips. Shh! A long, rusted blade appeared in its other hand. Daniel fought, his muscles straining, but it was useless. The chair held him. The thing pressed the knife against his palm, and it started cutting. Daniel howled in agony as his fingers were sliced open, deep, deliberate. Blood pooled over the table, soaking into the wood. The house shuddered, the walls moaned. The whispers turned frenzied. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Daniel's vision blurred. The pain was unbearable. He was slipping, fading. Then, a knock, a loud thunderous knock echoed through the house. The whisper stopped. The mirror self snapped its head toward the sound, eyes widening. Something was wrong. Another knock. Boom. Then, the front door exploded open. The escape. Daniel barely registered the figures rushing in. Men, flashlights, voices shouting. The moment the light touched the walls, the house screamed. The shadows twisted violently, retreating, breaking apart. The chair beneath him trembled. The restraints snapped. He collapsed to the floor, gasping. Strong arms grabbed him, pulling him up. Got you, kid. Stay with me. Daniel's head swam as he was dragged toward the door. The last thing he saw before blacking out. His mirror self, standing in the doorway, watching him go. Still smiling, still whispering, next time. The aftermath, Daniel woke up in a hospital. The police told him someone had called them. A static-filled, garbled message. Nothing but a whisper, repeating the address over and over. They found him in the dining room, slumped over the table. Alone. The house? Gone. Where it once stood was nothing but an empty lot, overgrown with weeds. No records, no foundation, as if it had never been there. Daniel never wrote his book. He moved far away, tried to forget. But at night, when the fog rolls in, he still hears the whispers, calling his name. Somewhere, in some town, on some forgotten street. A house stands, its front door slightly ajar, waiting. And if you listen closely, past the wind, past the silence, you might hear a voice, software smiling, whispering your name. Come inside. If you enjoy the story, subscribe to the channel and like the video and comment your thoughts about this video.